All right, guys, welcome back to Mark Anthony's Music Picks. Today we're on episode 4 of From the Booth, and we have a special guest with us today, Mayank Patel. Mayank is a progressive house producer slash DJ that sometimes plays his own productions in his live DJ sets. Mayank is a Kenyan native that has lived in various places across the country, almost more than I can count, Mayank. And most recently, he settled down in Philadelphia. We ran into each other at a party, sort of established a connection there. And then a few weeks ago, we saw each other at another party and got the idea for this interview. So Mayank, welcome to the channel, man.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah. It's great to have you. So I wanted to start off by just going like as far back as you can in your past and take me to your musical roots. Where did music start to register for you as a child, maybe as a 5, 6, 7-year-old, or did it not really click until you got older? And what was that like for you?
So actually for me, it actually clicked probably, as young as probably 2, 3 years old or so. I was told by my parents, because they used to have this small tape deck. And apparently I just used to be around it all the time. And, if they wanted to stop me from crying or something, you just had to put something on there. So I guess it was just it was internally built since then. But growing up in Kenya, we didn't have too much access to a lot of the the new music. So we used to get tapes from all the people who were living abroad, and they would come back for a vacation, and they would have all this mixtapes of whatever used to play on North American or European radios. And through one of those tapes, I discovered, the first, I guess, introduction to dance music, listening to the very first one I remember distinctly was ATB's 9 p.m. Till I Come. And this was right around the time I was leaving to come to the States. Mm-hmm. So that sort of started everything. And when I came over here, the age of Napster was taking off. So it was really easy to get into it and just stay there and just download all kinds of music. And that just pitballed into a love of, dance music and then trance music specifically. And then that stayed with me for a while, up until 2010, I would say. And then the sound started getting a little too commercial. And from there, I just went into progressive. It was like a natural transition into progressive because it maintained the melodic aspect, but it was still underground.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, you're giving me flashbacks to so I started college in 1999, and I had a roommate that he had this Paul Oakenfold Live at Creamfield CD.
Yep.
And he had the classic era trance that you're describing. I guess you could say that ATB is sort of trance or...
Yeah, right.
Actually, I don't know what category to put that in now that I'm thinking about it.
More dance, I guess, a little bit more pop, but that particular song, I don't it was played all over.
Yeah. Yeah, and the songs back then, those trance songs, they had a lot of charm and personality and distinction between one and the next. They were very recognizable. And you kind of alluded to that by the time you got to 2010, trance had kind of run its course, I would say.
Exactly. So I think from my experience, there was people either went from there into techno or if you just wanted that melody, that was your soul, then progressive was the one that I found.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
So what parties what were some of your first party experiences, either at a club, a festival, love parade type scenarios? Where were you
actually going? None of those like these. So I went to school in Oklahoma. There was absolutely no scene for electronic music over there. It was either just rock and roll or minimal hip-hop music. Mm-hmm. But right around maybe 2003 or 2004, this was when TSO was just coming up, and he announced a show in Dallas, which was the closest that I was to the place. So that was the very first one that I ever went to, and it just left one of those marks. I'm like, this is it now. It's it just started the whole thing of just like going back and finding out when the next one's going to be, Um, sorry, my Roomba is doing something crazy. Okay. So after that, and I was always DJing too on the side, but at the time it was just like computer DJing, just finding just any kind of software that I could just load onto the computer and just put 2 songs in and just mix in somehow, because you couldn't buy I couldn't afford the gear at the time. So those 2 things were happening in parallel. And then it wasn't up until I moved out of Dallas, out of Oklahoma, when I was in Boston. That's when I really started going to this place called Avalon, and then New York City was just like, just Spirit. I forget the names of these places now, but it was never festivals didn't really exist back then. This is like maybe 2005, 2006. It was more about like either big events, but they were still clubs, or just like big venues. So, and then that's it. And then, and then the whole bubble like sort of grew up so big, and like there was just an implosion of electronic music in America, right? So all the so-called underground festivals like Ultra or I think Ultra was the only one. They became just like huge. And then that was about it. But it was a mix of festivals, clubs, and like small intimate events, really. Just whatever was going on. Yeah.
Yeah, that parallels my experience. So I made it up to New York just often enough to have a glimpse of the scene and get to see most of the big venues in the early 2000s. And you're right. It was either a dedicated club with a dedicated system or a big space, and they would bring in a system. And sometimes some of those systems that they would like wheel in there, set up the stacks of speakers, those systems were like incredible. And so, I mean, really, really top. I mean, for a portable setup, for example, I saw Jonathan Peters at a venue that wasn't Sound Factory, and just the sound that they brought in, it was just completely.
Oh, right. He's a New York native, right?
Yeah.
Right. He used to play some good sets, right?
Yeah. He was known for these long sets, a lot of vocals, and also back then, I feel like in the mid 2000s, the DJs would, because they had more time to spin, it wasn't like the 1 hour sets that you and I are familiar with. They had 8-10 hour sets, and they could kind of meander through different genres and different tempos, and it was just it was a different scene. It was a different scene, but I do agree, sometime around the late 2000s, 2009, 2010, the festival thing came into play, and young people weren't going out to clubs for the first time. They were going out to festivals for the first time.
That was the first experience.
Yeah. And I feel like that's almost created like a divergence in dance music, where I either have young friends that are like, I'm a millennial, technically, I guess you are too, but younger millennials, they like to go to those festivals. And, the people like me are like, I just want to show up to a club and pay the cover at the door, and I don't want to buy a ticket. And the artists that they know are different than the artists that you and I know, right? Like
exactly.
You'll have like a CD in your car, maybe, I'm guessing, or a mix.
I still have like if you remember this, there was a 5 to 6 hour set that Tiesto played at the Heineken Music Hall, which went on to become like one of these iconic sets of all time. And I don't have it anywhere else, but I have it on CD, and it's still in my car. So like nothing else works. Like if the phone dies or something, the CD goes on.
Yeah, that's awesome. I still buy CDs, and that kind of brings me to another question that I wanted to ask you. You, before we started the interview, you recognized the Hernan balance back here. Do you keep up with the balance series? Like, how into that are you?
I used to, and then it's sort of faded away. So now it's like if it's an artist that I know, then I will go and listen to it. So like Hernan's, I definitely listened to. Patrice Boimel was the last one I heard, which was just like phenomenal. The one from Berlin. Joris Vaughn did one too, which was like incredible as well. So yeah, but I used to follow it. Now it's just like a little blurry, except the ones that I've heard.
Okay. For me, the Balance series, I think the oldest, I wasn't listening to it in the around 2010, 2012, but then Danny Tenaglia, who was like
Oh yeah.
a DJ hero of mine, he dropped one in like 2013. It was a double disc, and that thing was great, man. I absolutely love that. And then it kind of got me like following all the Balance, and the Nick Warren that came out 2 or 3 years ago. That's the Soundgarden. That's stellar. I think Hernan's mix is on the same level as Nick's. And Joseph's is really nice. I don't know if you checked out Joseph's Balance.
Yeah, actually, I think I have to take back what I said, because I was thinking of the Global Underground series and not the Balance ones.
Oh, okay. I did.
Yeah, so because it makes sense. So
yeah, it's okay.
Yeah, so for Balance, definitely Hernan Catania was the last one I listened to, and the Soundgarden.
Yeah. Oh, what's the most recent one that came out? It might pop into my head. I might have to bring that up later. But yeah, I really love that series, and I really feel like they're bringing quality right now. So what do you think of the current state of progressive house, right? Like if you listen to Nick's CD or Hernan's over here, right? There's sort of this idea of the tracks barely morphing and they're like almost kind of static or very slowly shifting.
Yep.
That seems to be the trend, right? There's All Day I Dream, there's let's see, Lost and Found.
Yep.
Right. They're basically sort of bringing this like low key sound. Like what do you think of that sound? Do you think it's going to stick around for a while longer, or do you think it's going to shift into something else in the future?
Yeah, I think that sound is not going anywhere. I mean, especially in South America, because that's where all these artists, especially the producers, they have like some amazing talent over there that are just dedicated and focused to making that particular type of progressive house. And as long as there are DJs like Hernan, Nick Warren, or even like Dave Seaman, that kind of music is not going to go anywhere, because their sets are meant to use that kind of music, because like you said, they play for like 8, 10, 15 hours, right? So it's not going to be something where you just hear like a verse chorus drop and then that same pattern. Is going to be something that's just progressive. It's going to, like, over 7 to 8 minutes is going to just slowly build into like something else. Really just a morphing of sounds, if you think about it. And that's how they tell a story with that, right? So I don't think that's going anywhere. If anything, I think it's going to become like even stronger.
Okay. Yeah, specifically in the Hernan CD, if you remember at the end of I think it's disc 1, where the White Rabbit track comes in, I think that's like a really good example of taking a track and just, I mean, that thing is like as stretched out and subtle as you can get it. Do you know what I mean?
Yep, exactly. You should. There's an interview of him. I don't know, like it's, I don't know if he's still there on YouTube, but this was when he was performing, I think somewhere in India, and the guy who was interviewing him asked him that exact same question, what you just said, is like, that sample, how did you take it and make it, so fit into that zone?
Yeah.
And it's just, the disc 1 is always slower, right? It's the one that is almost like 115 beats per minute, and just, it's like kind of.
Yes, disc 1.
Yeah, more chilled. And then the other one is faster. But it's amazing. I think that's what he asked him, is like, how did you put that sample into the thing? It just fits so perfectly.
Yeah, I think the girl, the vocal might be a cover vocal. Is that the case?
No, I'm not. Yeah, I wouldn't know. I just remember that name, White Rabbit.
Yeah. Sadly, it didn't make it onto that vinyl. I was I was kind of disappointed with that, but I mean, I have it on CD, so yeah.
Nice.
Right. Yeah. So let's shift gears and go like more into your production career. How did the idea initially come to you to like, hey, maybe I should start making music instead of just DJing it?
So I think that as if you're doing DJing long enough, at some point in time, your curiosity will just like take over, and you will want to find out how these tracks are made. It's just that are you willing to actually go and take it further and learn it, or just delve into it a little bit and then just decide that, oh no, I'm just going to keep DJing, right? For me, it was like when I was practicing DJing, I got Ableton Live 4, and I used that for DJing too, creating I have a radio show online, and so it's a 1 hour mix of like the latest in progressive and deep house.
Mm-hmm.
So I wanted to have that mix as clean as possible, especially transition wise, and be able to put like voiceovers and like just samples of like other vocals or like other parts of other tracks. So Ableton was the best way to do this. Even till date, people use that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it was already going there. It was already going into that zone, I would say, because you're mixing, but you're really using a production software to do DJ mixes, right? So it starts from there. You're like, oh wait, well, I can add something here. I can add something here. It's something subtle. You're like, I just want like a snare roll, for example, right?
Yeah, add busy to the song, right?
Exactly. So it just from there you're like, all right, well, let me just see if I can make one of my own, right? And there's like tons of stuff that I would never even release. Like it was just like it was not there. But you keep at it, and the curiosity keeps building and building. And I just kept at it, and it just one day just clicked, clicked enough to like be able to make a track that was releasable. And then when that one got released, I'm like, all right, well, this one's there, so I guess I can make another one, right?
Yeah.
And then you just, it's one of those things when you just keep doing it, you'll always keep learning more things, and you keep experimenting, and you get better without even knowing that you're getting better.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So whenever you make a DJ mix, you're not sitting down with CDJs and a USB and like trying to like dial it in. You're building your DJ mixes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So initially when I was doing Ableton, then I wanted to expand it because I still wanted to like, DJing still is an art form, right? So like there's something pure about being in front of a pair of decks and actually mixing, right? So I had a hybrid setup of Tractor and Ableton running together, where you can mix, but you have Ableton running on the side, and it's configured to have like 8 to 10 channels of like different instruments. So like if there's you're mixing and you're like I want maybe a sitar sound in here, for example, right? You can play it on top of your mix to make it different. It was just like how the question was, how do you make yourself different? How do you differentiate yourself, right? Because everyone can mix between 2 tracks or 3 tracks or whatever. So this was just the next level stuff, and it just helped with learning production even that much more.
Okay, so I'm picturing on these extra channels in Ableton, you would have like a drum loop that you really liked, or like you said, the sitar.
Yeah.
Did Ableton time it correctly for you so that you just had to decide when to bring it in and when to bring it out?
Yeah, so that's a good question. Actually, there's a lot of pre-prep you have to do. Like you have to send a MIDI clock signal from from Tractor into Ableton, so Ableton knows what tempo you're playing at. Yeah. But once all that stuff is set up, it's everything is in time, because I don't think electronic musicians, like, we're not actual players where you can like just free ball it and keep everything on time.
Yeah.
So you need that assistance. But after everything is configured, it's like, yes, you play a drum loop and it's going to be bam on time with what you're playing in Tractor.
Okay.
So, and my main idea was to just add melodic elements to tracks that I knew didn't have it, but they had the groove otherwise.
Yeah. Okay.
So there's a track playing and you're like, I have a piano already loaded up. I'm like, it sounds a little dry right now, so you can play a little melody and just keep it interesting that way.
Okay. Now, you said that melody, at least I think in your bio, it said that melody is like kind of your thing. Do you have formal music training? Did you just do your best to learn it self-taught? Do you mess with musical theory at all, or do you just go by feel, like just with your?
Yeah. So I have no musical background at all. This is just, and I think it's perfect for like electronic musicians because that's like it doesn't limit you in any way. Like you just go in and you. It's really like how what your ear is telling you, and then sometimes you will actually have to. It's just a natural progression too because you're like, well, I want to write a melody, but you have to know what key you're gonna write it in. So then you just like, all right, well, let me look up. It's a C minor, for example. Then you look up what notes are in C minor, right?
Yeah.
And then just program Ableton to just be able to play in C minor. So you don't need to know it's like very vast, right? That knowledge, you don't need to know all of it, in my opinion. It does help, but I think it's more important to just keep it more keep it more natural. Just like you don't need to know. Sometimes you make mistakes and the mistakes actually sound better. They call happy accidents.
Yes, that's so funny. You just stole one of my questions that I was going to ask you later on.
Oh.
about happy accidents. So just to give you some background, I recently bought Native Instruments machine because my friend works at Native Instruments and he's basically my go-to if I get stuck in the GUI and I'm like, dude, I don't know how to do this thing. I call him up and he walks me through it.
Right.
But I do find that that learning curve is steep, and especially if you're by yourself, kind of like looking up this hill. And I have ideas in my head, but a lot of times, like trying to get them to translate, like and actually have that come out of the DAW is like a different story. So, what would you say to producers out there that are like standing at the bottom of this learning curve, looking up? What advice would you give them?
Well, I think these days it's a lot easier because there's an enormous amount of tutorials out there. So if you just completely lost, the first thing I would say is just go to the manual, because like using Ableton as an example, it has every single thing on there in the manual. You do have to. That's what I was saying. Like people are not willing to put in the time. It's like they just they want to get that track made, but like bypass all the all the nerdy stuff, right? All the geeky stuff. But let's just say you don't want to do that, right? Like there's just so many tutorials, right? Intro to Ableton, or like making a dance track, right? You can search for anything on YouTube and you will be well on your way within like an hour or two.
Yeah.
Right. It was kind of there when I started, but right now it's like saturated. And also what happened is with the pandemic, all the producers, the actual producers that we listen to, we buy the records from, they started hosting master classes, right? Because that's the one thing they could do to share their knowledge, and they were charging, so they had to find a way to make income, right? So this was a perfect way where they could impart some wisdom, what they know, and make some money in the process. So if you're really really interested, then I'm sure you'll have like 4 or 5 producers that you really look up to, right? And you can always go and see. There's a high chance that one of them is going to have a masterclass that was there in like 2020, and that'll be the best way to just start.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, that kind of brings me to another topic. Which producers do you look up to the most?
Mine, as we were discussing at the last time we met, was Guy J's like right up here. Like if I could make any track that sounds like even half of what like the stuff that his does, then I feel like it's done, because there's no there. So his stuff is like it's they're all masterpieces in my opinion. And the thing is, like, he has so many tracks that we don't even listen to. They're just for his own sets.
Yeah.
Which if you go and like you see ID, those are all his tracks. And you're like, my God, how does he do it? So production wise, definitely, and not just him, everyone in the Lost and Found family, him, Guy Mansour, Eli Nissan, Ken, all of those guys. And then on the non-known front, like I was saying, there's a lot of South American producers that are just like, they could not be more than 25, 26 years old. And they get a lot of support from Hernan Catania on his resident radio show. So you'll see like all these tracks where you're like, who is this person? Who is this person? But as someone who's already established, he plays this out so they get some recognition. So I have like a handful that I know that I'm like, if I figure this out and I figure this out and put this two together, there'll be something special going on.
You mean if you figured out the production tactic that?
Yeah, the production tactics of like, say, people from Lost and Found, and the production tactics of this like young and upcoming producers that are getting their tracks played out on Hernan's resident radio show.
Yeah,
you know, it's a similar sound, but it's different. They have like little nuances that if you once you catch on to them and you figure out a way of how to just gel them together, you in one track you'll have something very unique. You know,
they might have stumbled onto a happy accident, like you were talking about, where maybe it's a layering or something syncopated slightly, or syncopation and layering, or something that's given their sound like that extra edge or that extra that extra pop that like the new guy doesn't know. It's like secret sauce.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And simplicity is also key. The that's one thing. Back to your question of like advice for new producers is, you get sucked into like, oh, I need to have like so many tracks in a project to make it sound professional or big. But it's the opposite that's true. Like you really just need, they say less is more, and that's so true. And you learn that with experience, right? It's like you don't need to have like 10 different tracks of like synths, layers of synth sounds, or like another like 10 tracks of pads or all that stuff. Just keep it minimal and you will still get that professional sound.
Awesome. What are your favorite tracks out of your catalog that, when it could be something recently released or something that came out, you've been at it for what, 12 years you've been releasing so far?
Yeah.
Do you have like a few pet ones that you're like, man, I was just really in the zone that day, and you feel like you still really feel really good about them, or like you have like a strong attachment to them?
There is one, like if I could pick one from my all-time favorite, or one of the all-time favorites, there's a track called "Save Me" by Airwave. Airwave did the remix for it, and this was back in, I don't know, maybe before 2005, but that track was just amazing. It's a trance track, but it has elements of pretty much progressive and trance into one. So if you're talking about going back way back then, that would be one of them. But the new one, I think we discussed this already when we were talking last weekend, was Small Alarms. And the ARP in that, because I heard this track 3 or 4 times. That once when Guy J played it at a boat party in New York, and I mean everybody was like, "What is this?" You could tell the crowd also wondering, right?
That buzz like goes through the crowd where you see people. What's the ID?
Looking at each other is like, "What is this?" Right? Because Catania played it, Nick Warren played it 2 or 3 times. He could never find it, Shazam or anything. It was just not there. And last EP came out, and I was like, "Is this it really?" Like, you're just a little bit, like maybe a deja vu or something. Can't be. Like for 2 years, these guys have been playing it, and this is it. And and then I just like loaded up on Ableton, and I was just like trying to analyze it to like every 4 bars, what is going on in this, right? So I still have a project on that, which I'm using as a learning experience. Because that was the one thing one of my production mentors told me, is like, when you're stuck, you don't have your own ideas, just, pull up one of your favorite tracks and just try to break it down and try to recreate it. You'll learn so much more, like so much about production by doing that exercise. So I'm like, all right, well, this is it.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. That moment that you're describing there of like the buzz going through the crowd, I mean, that's kind of like
Hmm.
the best thing that can happen at a party. It's like the ultimate, in my opinion, right? To have like a track that nobody knows and have
Hmm.
everybody kind of like gelling over the fact that it's like blowing people's minds like all at once.
Oh, exactly. And like, I mean, you got to picture it too. Like you're, or, you're on the boat and it's going down the Hudson River. You got like amazing views of New York City, and this thing comes on. And I always tell everybody that, everyone has different taste. I get that, right? But I think for a boat party, progressive house is like the best genre to enjoy that everything, you know. Because if you play like something that's harder and faster, you're like, all right, well, it's not a club, right? It's not, you're not in a dance mode. You're just like somewhere in between.
Swaying. Yeah, you need the
Just
sway factor. Yeah, just like kind of bopping
exactly.
around and chilling. Yeah. I totally agree with that. I can see progressive being good on a boat. I've never been on a progressive house boat party, but I'll put that
Oh
on my.
yeah, it's yeah, you should if you get a chance.
So the next thing I had on my list for going out was there's an All Day I Dream that's happening on a Sunday, Lee Burridge at Brooklyn Mirage.
Okay.
Have you been to that venue? Like,
No, I haven't actually, but it's funny you asked because we just bought tickets to another like mini festival that's happening over there on end of July. It's I think this is more like, it's more trancy. But I figured, I was talking to my friends, I'm like, with being in Philly, I've played so much progressive. I've gone to so many like techno events, right? So I'm like, I need to just let me go to something different. I know it's not going to be the same. It's not the same sound that we're looking for. Like, that golden era has passed, but it's still different than techno and progressive, right? So, so that's the one I'm going to go to. So it'll be my first time in Brooklyn Mirage. I'm looking forward to it. Are you going to it?
right now, it would be me going by myself, but it's a day party. I'm thinking, I can just take it easy, get up there midday, and then leave midday the next day, and it would be like
Yeah.
doable. I'm 40, so
Yeah. Right.
so like
We can push
day
too
party
much.
that starts at 2 and ends at 11. I'm like, yeah, that's
Yeah.
pull this off.
And you won't tire out because that vibe. All Day Dream is another label. Like that's just like so chill and so mellow. Like you just wanna. It's like I always picture like being on a beach somewhere. You just moving around, like your eyes closed, and just like letting those vibes just take you in a different dimension.
Yes, it's very spacey, like kind of the fact that they were playing some of those tracks at that party that we were at a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
The music was very appropriate, right? Like
It was exactly, yeah. The setting,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. The setting, and they did an amazing job with the whole setup too. Like with the screens and the lighting and everything. Like I don't know what time you left. I was saying, like, I don't know what time you left, but towards the end it was like I think it was 1 a.m. or maybe 2 a.m. But we had briefly talked to the promoter that, hey, I might, can I play later on? He was like, I'll let you know. Most probably you will be able to. And he was able to get me in. And like, I think out of all the events that I've played, that was like the best one, bar none. And the thing is, like, when you DJ, these when you connect with the crowd, right? Because you have them, right? They're with you. That was the one time that I consciously felt that happen. And I was playing like just a combination of progressive and Afro house, try to create those jungle vibes. It was phenomenal. Yeah.
Right. So you're playing a track and they're vibing to it, and you're thinking, well, wait to hear the next one, right? So you're like feeding off of it, right?
Exactly. They're telling you what indirectly they're telling you what you have to play next.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, see, thank you, right? It's amazing, that feeling.
Mm-hmm. Did you play any of your own tracks and did you get a real strong reaction from any of them?
No, I didn't. So it's I felt it going down a very Afro and like a jungle vibe, and I don't have any tracks that can match that, it would have like totally been like, okay, what just happened there?
Well, that's good that you had the sense to not do that. You felt,
Yeah, it's more like reading the crowd, right?
Mhm. That's good to hear, man.
Yeah.
All right, so just wrapping up the session for today, do you have any upcoming releases that you would want to share with the viewers, or that what's coming to top?
So no, right now I have lots of my own productions, a couple of collabs, and one track that I just finished that I'm sending out to a couple of labels for to see if they'd be interested. So no active releases in the queue yet. All the stuff that I had in my queue was released as of early June. So everything is going to be available on my Beatport or like iTunes, just all the portals. So your viewers can actually find it. They just need to look for Mayank, and it will pop up somewhere on Google.
Okay, guys, when you're watching this, down below, I'll give you a link to Mayank's Beatport so you can go and check out his music. He's got some great stuff. It goes back, 12 years, Mayank? And I think you started out, I think, making trance, and now you've shifted almost entirely to progressive, right?
Actually, no, like this was when after switching to progressive, I went to production. So all the stuff that I made was all progressive, except a couple of trance tracks here and there.
Okay.
But that was just for that was just for fun, just to practice and just see what comes out of it. So yeah, but so you're saying like, when you're trying to produce and it looks like you're the bottom of a mountain just looking up at a huge mountain. If in Philly, like here in Philly, my outlook has always been that I want to be able to help as much as I can, to anybody who's willing or learning how to produce. Because I think of this city as just having it grow together and not just have pockets of like this here and there, So that's how our Filler Deep team, which I don't know if you heard of, came together, because we knew we had a great artists in terms of DJing, and we knew we had 2 or 3 people that knew how to produce really well, right? So like if we put these two things together, right, something good can come out of it, especially for the city of Philadelphia, right? Because everything happens in New York, which is great, but like you said, sometimes it's just not feasible to go there for like, I don't know, 4 or 5 hours, go all the way and then come back down. It's just, and it's expensive, all these factors. So we're like, let's just recreate it over here, as well, we can try at least.
That is awesome. And if that last party that we ran into each other at is a representation of Philadelphia, then man, Philly's in a good spot.
Exactly.
All of that pent up energy of people wanting to go out, and we got beautiful weather that day. I was so impressed. I was so impressed.
Oh yeah, like even our party, the one we had last weekend. Did you come to that? The Voyage party. That's also based. That's our good friend Alex Miles' brainchild, and it's also based around progressive and deep house vibes. And it was like, we've never had this many people come to one of these events, like, ever. This is probably the 6th time that that he's done it. They were hungry. They were there. They want, they just want it, right? And no one showed up there by accident. I would say like a good 80 to 90% were there for that music. So it's exciting for us to see that. So now it's on us now to build on that.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. I'm going to try to come out to as many events as I can. It still takes me 45, 50 minutes to get there. It's kind of an expensive Uber ride, but I'm going to try to come out because I had so much fun. So
yeah, well, you're always welcome. Like anytime you're down there, just let us know. We'll keep you updated on at least what's going on our end. And just for any other reason, if you're just down, just let me know. We can probably just get a coffee or something. Yeah. Just talk this way, except it won't be recorded.
Yes, that sounds great, Mayank. All right. Well, I want to thank you for your time today. This was a great interview. It's great to learn more about you. And like I said, guys, link down below to Mayank's Beatport. I'll hook up your SoundCloud, Mayank, and check out Philadelphia people. Check out the Phila Deep parties. The last one that we went to a few weeks ago was just absolutely perfect. So more to come.
All right. Thank you for having me, man. I look forward to seeing you somewhere on the dance floor sometime soon.
Sounds good, Mayank. Sounds good. All right. Take care, man.
Take care.